Today I'm going to do a heavy crackle finish on a table, and I'm going to use spray paint in combination with my chalk paint to get this look of colors that look like they've been weathered together for 100 years. You can certainly do less crackle if you want less crackle. You just put your crackle medium in the areas of your project where you want the crackle to appear. So here we go. The first thing I'm going to do is put down Elmer's glue. You can use Crackle medium or another water-based glue. The important thing is to not put down more glue that is going to be dry before you put paint on it. So I'm literally pouring it out of this large Elmer's glue bottle. And take a brush, brush it out quickly. This is about as large of an area as I would want to do with this because it starts to dry so fast. All right, now I've got chalk paint. It doesn't really matter what chalk paint you use. I make my own chalk paint. And I also have a chalk paint recipe and a clear wax recipe in my videos. You don't want to go back over the paint very much because it makes it mix more with the glue, which makes it not crackle as well. So try to get enough paint on with your first or second pass. Spray paint. I'm just going to do a light spray paint over this, and this paint is water-based. Spray paint is oil-based. Oil and water don't mix, therefore you get a really cool look when it's dry. And that's it. Now we wait. So I'm going to let this dry until it's dry. It will take at least several hours, possibly overnight, but layer of glue, layer of chalk paint, a little misting of spray paint, and we will come back and see what it looks like. This has dried overnight, and this is what we have. The tricky thing about this painting technique is that you cannot paint vertical surfaces. So you have to paint everything horizontal, and it has to be somewhat dry before you move to another part of the table. So the top of the table has to be dry before I can do the front of the table. And then before I do the side of the table, the front will have to be dry. So you can either spend the time to let it dry, or you can speed it along with the heat gun, because as soon as it's reasonably dry enough to not drip, then you can turn the table over to another section. So with doing this top part I'm doing here, after I do this, I'm going to do the legs down here because they face up right now. So I'm going to do the top and anything else that is facing up at the same time. One of the other important things about doing a crackle finish is that your paint is generally going to crackle in the direction of your brush strokes. So I brush the drawer this way because that would be the way the grain of the wood goes that way, and that's the way it would be done naturally. The legs of the table, I brush this way, and right here is this way. So when this crackles, my crackle should run up the legs like this, and across here it should run this way because that's the direction of the brush strokes. The other big thing you have to worry about as you're doing this is that you're definitely going to get some drips that come around the sides, and you need to either brush these in or wipe them off. Once you get a heat gun on here, if you're using a heat gun, it will stop that, but you need to just make sure there's no drips, because that will make it harder as we flip it over to fix them after it's been flipped. With the heat gun, you don't have to get this all the way dry. You just have to get it dry enough to where it's no longer going to run if you turn it the other way. When I add my color, I'm going to do that also in the direction of the brush strokes. You don't want to add too much spray paint because a lot of it will not blend in like a little bit of it will. So you can either wait for this to dry or you can speed dry it with the heat gun. You just want to make sure, if you were going to, for instance, let this dry and then let this touch the ground while you do the other side, you want this to be really dry before you do that, or you can lose your work. Now that the front is dry, I'm going to do one of the sides. I got a bit much spray paint here, but that will be an easy fix. Just like that. All right, I'm not going to do the rest of this on camera. I'm just going to show you a couple things. These drips need to come off of here. They can be scraped off or sanded off, but these will show under the paint, and so I want those gone. This is some glue right here, and that dripped around, so I'm going to sand that off as well. So before you put your glue and your paint on any of it, just make sure all your drips are either sanded or scraped off. This drawer is completely dry. You can see the blue and the white and the crackle. The next step is going to make it look really cool. It's going to bring the blue and the white, it's going to blend them and make them look like they have been distressed and aged over the years. So it's real simple. Just sand it down till it looks good. So you can see how this paint is looks much better. It looks like it has just been weathered together. These edges I'm going to have to do with the hand sander because an electric sander will just chew it up. So I'll show you the same thing on this tabletop. This part I have already sanded. You can see how it actually reminds me of the ocean and the beach. Same thing on this. I'm going to hand sand these edges, but that is the look I'm after, where it's all blended and weathered together. As you're doing this, if you find you have too much wood showing either through your crackle or because you overdid it with the sander, you can take your chalk paint and you just get a little bit in the brush. It's dry brush basically, and you can go over those areas and add a little bit of white back to them. I have more of the brown wood showing through here than I like. I could have put a color underneath of the white before I did it, but I chose to just go ahead and do the crackle and paint. So now that I don't like as much dark, I'm just going to dry brush some of it. This is just an option whenever you have something that is not quite what you want it. There's always this. And then if you do that and you put more of the white on there than you want, you can just kind of wipe it away to get some of the color back. I think I'm going to distress the edges of this piece all over. It's hard to tell what you're going to want to do until you're actually in the middle of painting a piece of furniture because there are so many variables as to how it can turn out. But I'm going to go ahead and distress the edges all over this table. These are the results for the Super Crackle table. I'm going to come back and seal this with spray polyurethane. If you've used chalk paint, you can seal it with wax or polyurethane or polyacrylic. If you used regular paint, I would recommend using a polyurethane finish on this. So that's it for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and check back often. I put up new videos all the time. Thank you.